I think that's something that we learn from faith and something that we learn from the stories of people's journey of faith, is that we're all in this together, right? It was only together with us that all of these people would be made perfect, that we're in the human experience together, reaching out for what we hope for, right? Faith is confidence in that which we hope for. And so I think we have something to learn from the faith journey of each one of us. And we are so glad this morning to be able to hear the faith journeys of Susie Apple and Mary Kellner. This started because I think first Susie said to me, I think Mary Kellner would be a great person to interview for the faith journey. So I talked to Mary, and Mary was like, I was thinking that Susie would be a great candidate. And so as we got talking about it, we thought, well, why don't we do it together? Susie and Mary are great friends. They have both been a part of OCC for a long time. Mary has been here right from the beginning. And so I know you're going to be encouraged to hear their story and the story of their lives and their friendship and their faith this morning. So let's welcome them as they come. Well, good. Thank you all so much for doing this. This is going to be great. I know, again, you all have been around OCC for a number of years, but for those who may not know you quite as well, just give us your, kind of the nuts and bolts, your life story in a minute or so. So, Susie, let's start with you.
I grew up in Whitefish Bay.
Perfect, there you go.
I was one of 5 siblings. I went to Catholic school all of my life except for 2 years. They were my very favorite years in school. Not because it wasn't Catholic, but they were just my very, very, very favorite years at school. And other than that, all of my experience was with Catholicism. And it was really all that I knew. And there were lots of rules, lots of black and white, lots of hoops to jump through, lots of negativity, lots of guilt, which is all I knew. And so that's what I did.
And so I want to talk a little bit more about that. But tell us you have kind of lived in this area your whole life, and you have 2 kids that are not in this area.
Right?
Yes. Just tell us about them or where they are.
I have a son in L.A. and a daughter in Columbus, Ohio.
Son in L.A. and a daughter in Columbus, Ohio. That's great. Well, good. Yes, we're going to, and I want to get to the other in just a minute. That is great.
I knew I would jump ahead, and I'm glad you.
No, that's okay. That's okay. This is what we talk about. Jump and keep us on track. Good, Mary. Mary, tell us your.
Okay, I grew up on Long Island, and I had 2 older brothers, and went to school there in the public schools and had a wonderful experience. And then I wanted to get away and do something a little different, so I took my first airplane ride and went to Madison, Wisconsin for college, and never saw the campus, just heard it was fun, and it was. And anyway, I studied elementary education. I met a wonderful guy my freshman year, who I've been married to now for 51 years. And taught school there a year, and then moved to Delaware, and were there for a few years, had our first child, and moved back here in 1973, and had 2 more and kids, and we've got a couple of them here today. It makes me teary here. I've got 3. We have 3 children. 2 of my daughters are here today, and 3 of their one of my daughter's children, all the three of them. They all live in Mequon.
That they're here, let's just introduce them. It'd be
Oh,
great.
okay.
Yeah. Laura, yeah, go ahead.
All right, well, Laura's here, and Tess is my grandchild, Charlotte. Back there is Jack, the oldest one, and then my son-in-law, Bart, and then my other daughter is Kristen next to Jack.
Great.
Thank you for coming, kids. But anyway, and then we have a son in California. And so anyway, I was an elementary teacher, and then I'm telling the script the way it was, Susie.
Yes, you are.
And then anyway, so I came back here, studied guidance and counseling, and then I've been doing a lot of volunteer work in my life. And so the last thing, I went and got my degree at Stritch in education because I wanted to learn more about what was going on in urban literacy in the urban center, because I saw the disparities in education, and so that's kind of where I've been spending a lot of my time in the last number of years, is trying to help wherever I can in education.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. And you say your degree, you got your PhD?
No, I got my EDD,
EDD,
not my
okay.
PhD.
EDD,
Yeah.
that's, well,
Yeah.
that's even better. Yeah, good for you. No, that's great. Mary, I'm going to come back to you, but Susie, your sister is here. We haven't.
Yes, she is.
So we should introduce her.
Where's she? That's
Oh,
my
yes.
sister, Meg Kelly.
Where is Meg?
Way in the back there.
Introduce her again. Sorry.
Meg Kelly, my sister.
Great to have you with us as well. Thank you. Good. So yeah, let's talk about kind of your experience growing up and the beginning of your faith journeys. And Mary, we'll start with you. We all grow up with a particular understanding of faith and God, based on where we grow up and the experience, all of that. So what was that experience like for you? Who was God to you growing up? What was your faith experience in the tradition that you grew up in?
Well, I grew up Presbyterian, and I had a wonderful church, Old First Presbyterian Church, and so I went to Sunday school basically all the time, and we had a wonderful group of people. So I just went through that, and I just sort of listened to, I was preached that God was, just as you say, God is love, and that's how I grew up. And Jesus was the Son of God. I was preached that, and I believe that. Later on, we'll get into that. But
Sure.
Anyway, I just had a very wonderful experience growing up with the church, and then and we had just a really group of good friends that were part of that church growing up with me. So
Yeah. No, that's great. And that was your elementary school right through high school?
right
Was
through
that
high school. Mm-hmm.
Same church and group? Yeah. Oh, that's so great. That is great. Susie, I know you had a bit of a different experience. Tell us about your experience growing up and your faith tradition and your understanding of God and all of that.
Well, I jumped ahead as I wasn't
That's
supposed to.
okay. That's okay.
But as I say, all of my years in school except two were Catholic education. And I have a zillion Irish Catholic relatives and many, many Catholic friends. And I love them all, and I respect them all, and I respect everything that they believe in. They're all wonderful people, and I respect, as I say, everything they believe in. And my experience just may have been different than theirs, but mine was very punitive, very guilt-ridden, very, as I say, lots of laws and regulations, and I'm probably jumping ahead here now, too.
That's okay. That's okay.
But when Vatican II came, things started to relax a little bit. But I think it was a difficult transition for a lot of us who have grown up with black and white. And then priests were saying, well, go according to your conscience. So I remember going to confession often before I got married and saying to the priest, I want to practice birth control. I lived in a block with, there must have been 50 kids in the block, and there was one family who had no money and 12 children. And I helped babysit for them. And I thought, I don't think I can do that. And the priest said, well, go according to your conscience. So Am I jumping ahead here?
That's okay.
So we
Yeah,
went to
it's
meet
good.
with the priest at St. Monica's, and our parents were in the waiting room, and we were signing the papers. It was supposed to take about 10 minutes. And then he said, "Now, you know you're not to use birth control." And I said, "Well, I kind of think I am, because we're very young, we don't have any money." And he took his pen and he threw it on the floor, and he said, "I'm not going to marry you." Meanwhile, our parents are waiting to see what happens. So what ultimately happened was that he sent in a younger priest, and he talked to us, and we just sort of got around that somehow. And everybody knew that we were going to use birth control, you know, but it was just something you had to go through, and you had to write it down, and you had to say it, and so that's what we did.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, as we've said before in here, right? I mean, each tradition has things that are good, and each
Yes.
tradition has things that, you know, and different people's experience
Yes.
and all of that. And I know you said that you know, something that was positive, and that was the retreats that you
Yes.
participated in, right?
Yes. Not unique to our family, but it was not a happy family. There was too much arguing, too much drinking. My mom would spend time going to retreats for Catholic women, and she found them very, very beneficial. She loved them. I thought she just went to get peace and quiet, but she really got a lot out of them, and she ultimately sent me to those retreats. And as I think back, those reminded me a little bit more of this experience. It was quiet, it was talking, it was thinking. It was talking about substance rather than tradition and superficial things and dogma. It was talking about leading a good life, making the most of yourself, leading a life that Jesus would have been pleased with. So that was a big deal to me. And when I was married, the nuns asked us to stop by between the wedding and the reception. They wanted to see me in my wedding dress. So, you know, it was just a nice moment. They were a nice, intelligent, good group of women. And that was helpful.
Yeah, good. No, I mean, as, you know, the experience, your experience kind of growing up with a sort of an angry God and feeling guilty all the time and fearful, you know, to this kind of moment of your wedding and the issue of birth control, and thinking, wait a second, I don't know that kind of jumping through these hoops, is that
Right.
really who God is, right? And I don't see anything in the Bible about,
Yeah.
you know, this type of thing. And then the experience of, some of these retreats and
Yes.
the nuns, and coming to kind of embrace the idea that God is love.
Yes.
Yeah.
Took a long time.
Yeah. No, and so, Mary, your obviously experience, you had a really positive experience, you know, growing up in elementary school and in the church and in high school and this group of friends. But as we say, every tradition, no tradition is perfect, right? And, you know, we call this faith as a journey. And, you know, there were some of the questions that you started to ask, or things that you started to think about as you went along too, maybe a shift in your journey. Just tell us about that too.
Well, I think as I went to school and I got to see other faiths, you know, I had a lot of Jewish friends and Catholic friends and later on even, you know, Islamic friends, and it's like I thought, you know, I questioned the fact of Jesus. I never questioned there was a God, but I did question, well, you know, and I went to a church before I came here that I remember the minister saying, if you didn't believe that Jesus was the Son of God, you would not be saved. And I was with my Jewish friend, and we both looked at each other, and we went up to the minister afterwards and she said, well, my grandmother was a wonderful lady. She was Jewish. Are you telling me that she won't go to heaven? And the minister said, yes. And so we both said, that's it, we're out of here. So we never went back. But thank goodness I found, you know, this church down the road. But I did question that, and I sometimes still question that. But you know what? What I realized is Jesus was a wonderful person. The values, so does it matter if I believe that he was the Son of God or not? I believe he was a prophet. He was wonderful. And his teachings to me are what's important. So that's kind of where I am. I also went through a phase, some of my friends would tease me, but I'm still kind of in that a little bit of a phase about my reincarnation phase, because I believe, I believe that, we're just not here once, not that people, I'm not thinking we come back as butterflies and things like that, but that we're constantly growing. And so that's a belief that I still kind of adhere to in my mind, that, we're just not here once. Even for these little babies that live, 3 months, that's just not it for them. They have a spirit and somewhere they're around. So that's kind of in my head where I think too.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. And, as we say, right, faith is a journey. I mean, we're all kind of reaching out. There's, things we don't know. There's things we can't explain, right? And how do we make sense of some of these things, And I think, that you say, hey, was Jesus the Son of God? Like, literally, does it matter? What we see in him is good teaching demonstrated, and we see the love of God demonstrated, right? That is for all of us. And no, that's great. That's great. And this passage we read, faith is confidence in what we hope for. We hope for these things that there's more than just this, right? That there's that which is beyond. Yeah, no, that's great. So you tell us, Mary, I think we're starting with you. We're going back to start with you. How you got to OCC.
Okay, well, I had been going to a church on the North Shore, actually North Shore Congregational, and I had been going to, we had our kids were little, and I would work in the nursery and go to church sometimes, and my husband Ted, I love this story, he would drop me off. I would go take the kids into church and go to do what I was doing for the hour and come back, and he would go to McDonald's and read the paper. And he was caught once when my son said, "Dad, you parked here before, and now you're parking here." And anyway, so one day, though, he came to church with me, and we heard that a fellow was preaching named Dick Buckman, and I heard nice things. So we went, and Ted listened in, and I think my father-in-law was there too. I can't remember if Dad came, Ted's father, who I adored. And we both heard Dick preach, and Ted said, "Now, I really like this guy. I'd listen to him." Well, then not too long later, a friend of mine called and said that Dick Buckman was going to start a church. And I said, "I'm in," because I really wanted Ted to go, and his dad too. Ted, my husband Ted grew up a little bit of here, a little bit of there, nothing, no particular religion. And so anyway, we went to this church. It started out in up the American Legion Hall.
Yeah.
And we went there, and I get a kick out of Sandy. And I think Rebecca was still in high school. Well, I don't even know if you're in high school or in college, but you were a counselor. I remember, you being loving kids and working with kids. This is way before marriage and everything. And anyway, so we really loved the church. And then I remember when we came here, I remember them painting, and I think Ted was on the ceiling plastering. And anyway, so we've been here from the beginning.
Yeah.
And have loved it, just because it is free thinking. It's not telling you what to do, but it is faith-based, and the way you preach, well, God loves us, and that's kind of how I feel. So.
Good. Well, good. Well, we're glad you all are here. Yeah, you and Ted were charter members here.
Yeah,
right?
we were.
And, that is. There's some story about a tractor being involved in the purchase of this building that Ted was a part of, I think. And Dick Bookman, was the founding minister. Dick passed away a couple of years ago, but Sandy, Dick's wife, is here, and Rebecca.
And Rebecca, so it's nice to see them there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they really brought my family to church, and which was nice.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That is great. Susie, How did you get to OCC? I know there's a connection here.
Yes,
Yeah.
I got here through Mary. And Mary stopped by one Sunday, and I had been at church. I had been at church by myself. Nobody in my family wanted to come. They were just too frustrated, and I was frustrated too, but I thought I had to go, so I went. And Mary stopped by, and I was just not in a good mood. And I said, I need something. I am desperately in need of something that means something to me in the way of church. And she said, well, I'm giving the homily next Sunday, so maybe you would like to come. So we came, and Dick was preaching, and our whole family came. And we all loved it. And I remember, when you've talked about music being a spiritual experience,
Yeah.
music is a huge deal to me. It can be a very, very spiritual experience. And the day we came, they sang Softly and Tenderly, which is why I attempted to play it a few weeks ago at church. But I remember that day, and I remember the song. And if you would say, well, why would you go just because Mary asked you? Mary is a remarkable person. She's a wonderful human being. She walks the walk. She is kind, generous, thoughtful, modest. She has a wonderful family. I've known her family. Her son was a friend of mine. And I thought, this is someone I'd follow to church. And I truly would not have gone with anybody else.
Yeah.
Really, I would not have. But I knew about her life. I knew what she did. I knew about her. I knew her family. I knew her volunteer work, and she's got me involved in a lot of wonderful volunteer work. I mean, she has enhanced my life in many, many ways, including bringing me to this church, which is no small thing.
Yeah.
So it's been a wonderful, wonderful experience, and I wouldn't have followed anybody else.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's great. I mean, of course, Mary is such a wonderful person, and it speaks to the importance of relationship
Yes.
and connection and
Yes.
friendship, right? And just talk about that, Mary. We'll come back to you. The connection connection and friendship, that is important. I know that has kind of changed for you over the years here, but that the connection with this church and the people in this church and the importance of relationships. Yeah.
Well, I think relationships are everything. But first of all, I want to say this is a wonderful lady who is the dearest thing in the world. And actually, and she's got a memory like a elephant, do they say? I mean, honestly, after church sometimes I'll come home and Ted will say, well, what was the service about? And this is not just with you, this is pre-you.
Yeah.
And I go, I know it was good, but I can't remember. And I'll call Susie and say, Susie, what did they say? And she could practically tell the whole thing. And I always ask her, what's happening? Because she knows. But anyway, she's been a dear friend to me, and couldn't be more wonderful volunteer too.
Yeah.
But anyway, so relationships to me are just about everything. I had wonderful ones growing up at our church there, and then when we got here, we had wonderful relationships. I have to say, and now we've been here now, how many years? Almost 40 years?
Yeah.
Okay. Years ago, probably the first 10, 15 years, a lot of our contemporary friends were here, and they were part of the congregation. Over the years, with Dick leaving, and then different ministers, people sort of dropped off,
Yeah.
and moved, and so we've gotten older, and Ted's real busy with his traveling, and so we just haven't made that. We love the people here, but I don't know as many as I used to.
Sure.
But it's part of being my age. I don't come to church every weekend. Anyway, I do listen to you I stream you.
That's great. That is great.
But anyway, but I've always been a believer that relationships are everything. So
Yeah.
it's been wonderful.
Yeah. Well, I think that's, OCC is what it is because of the people and the relationships that have been here over the years, and people like y'all who have been here for for so long, and yeah, life, the journey of life changes, right? And people come and go, and that's how it goes, But I mean, those of us who are new here, right? We are living the legacy of all of you who have been here for so long, and the new relationships that are forming, are a testament to all of you. And so, thank you for making OCC what it is, But this is the journey of life, right? And the journey of faith, and it is the faith journey for your kids, right, is certainly different than it was for you or for your grandkids, Mary, right? So just talk about that, about what is kind of faith today, and as you reflect on your kids and grandkids. Sure, Susie, let's start with you.
Well, it was very different because my kids went to public school, so they got exposed to all different ideas and religions, which was wonderful. And we went for a period where we did go to church and then didn't, and then they went off to school. And I think my son is quite a spiritual person. He doesn't go to church, but he believes there's a higher power. In fact, the last time he was at home, he was praying in front of the television for the Packers to win. And he said, I think there's a higher power in there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he does. He's quite spiritual, but he does not go to church. And my daughter, Amy, nobody hears from. She's out of the loop. We don't hear from her. So I just pray a whole lot about her.
Yeah.
And I have to assume she's a very strong-willed person, and she's pretty self-reliant, and I think she's probably doing okay, and she's probably spiritual in her own way.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Mary, tell us about, what does faith look like today as you think about your kids and grandkids? And
my faith is, sort of, it was set up there that, it's just a trust and a belief in something out there. And so I've always had a strong faith. Matter of fact, when I'm going into a situation that I might be nervous about and, or, apprehensive about, I always sort of picture either God or Jesus or somebody right here on my shoulder saying, okay, help me out here, and so that part it's always comforting to know I feel like somebody's got my back.
Yeah.
And that's a good feeling. Now, as far as my kids go, we have an older son who lives in California, and who is the dearest person in the world, but I don't know if he's an atheist or an agnostic. I really don't know. But, he grew up in the church, but he's just, he believes in, I think he believes in a higher power, but, I just think he's a really good person, so whatever he thinks.
Yeah.
He's kind and good. And then I've got the two daughters, one with the three children here. They all do attend church, but that church is not going on right now, so, but they are all great kids. And my daughter back there she lives out on the west side, and I'm still waiting for her to find a church. She loved being here, and then she, I think she loved Fox Point Lutheran, where she got married, but she's out on the west side, and so she's still looking for what we have here, where she can go and feel real comfortable.
Yeah.
And anyway, but I'm very proud of all of them. They're all really good people.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, that's, again, the journey of faith. And as I think about my kids and, the different spots that the people that I know are in, and, think about Amy or your kids, Mary, and wherever they are, right, that God is there and the love of God is there, and that we trust in that, right, and we have hope in God's love for us and presence with us wherever we are, and that wherever we are on the journey, and that my younger brother would describe himself as an agnostic too, and I tell him, hey, all I want for you is that you would find hope and joy and peace and life and less pressure on your shoulders, and the love of God through the person of Christ does that for me, and so we trust God with all of that. So Well, thank you all so much. I mean,
Thank you.
for your part here at OCC and for your legacy that we're living through here as OCC continues on, for sharing your story with us, and we appreciate you all. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you
Yes.
for asking.